Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another knife review for you today. We have a knife I'm very happy to bring you. We have the Real Steel G5 Metamorph, a very cool, slim, kind of gentlemanly design from Ostap Hel of Poland, coming to you via, as I said, Real Steel. Real Steel is a Chinese company. They're based in China. They make everything in China, but this is not one of your fly-by-nighter, clone makers. This is an actual, real, legit Chinese company. I would put them, right up there with your Kaisers, your Wies, your Rake. A very cool company. They make stuff all the way up in like $210. This is not one of those. This is on their website. The Metamorph is $75. It would be more like $55, $60 currently if you could find it on a distributor site. They sold out quite a few very quickly, so they're currently only available pretty much from We. And then I saw one site out of the UK had them for $62. But when they're up on Blade HQ and stuff like that, the American sites, they're $55, $60. They'll be back again. It's not discontinued or anything like that. They just sold out really quick. And I can see why, because this is a very cool knife. What we have here, apologize for the throat clearing. Nothing I can do about it right now. I'm still getting over the stupid cold. We have 7075 aluminum frame front flipper, which I have not had a front flipper before, and I wanted one, but a lot of front flippers are pretty pricey. A lot of them are from designers who don't do a whole lot of stuff like this, through production companies. So a lot of them are very expensive. This one is not, as I said. We're just going to call it a $55 knife for the purposes of this review, because if you search around, that's what you'll pay for one. And I wanted to try a front flipper, so at $55, it was a fairly painless entry. Got this one from LTK, and he cut me a bit of a deal because I'm a YouTuber. But yeah, it's super fun. I'm getting okay at the front flipper. It does take a little bit of time to learn, but I really like it. It's fun to play with. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's first of all just get into the stats of this knife. You are looking at an overall length of about 8 1/4 inches. Blade length of about 3 3/4 inches. Real Steel on their site calls it 3.5. It is not. It's longer than that. Absolutely. I'd call it 3.7, 3.75. Handle length of about 4.5 inches. You have a handle thickness of 0.4 inches and a blade thickness of 0.12. I know it looks thinner than that here on the camera, but there's a top swedge here. At its thickest point, it is 0.12 inches. So thinnish, but not crazy thin blade stock. Let's do some size comparisons here before we get going. We will compare it to, first of all, what do I have around here? First of all, another little kind of budgetish, gentlemanly folder I have here. We have this is the Kershaw Almar AM4. So you can see it's longer than that. This is a pretty long knife. If those stats didn't convey that to you, you have, let's compare it to one of our usuals, the Spyderco PM2. Yeah, see, it's every bit as long as a Paramilitary 2. It's a big one. And we'll keep it going pretty quick here, but last but not least, we have, almost hit my tripod there. We have the Chris Reeve large Sebenza. So yeah, it's also every bit as long as a large Sebenza. So this is a long knife. It's thin, but it's long. Insert "that's what she said" joke here. So those are the overall stats and the size comparisons. Let's just get into like the my feel on the quality and the aesthetics. Quality on this is really, really, really good, especially, as I said, $55. Some of the stuff you're looking at here that impressed me, you've got full aluminum backspacer here that's all milled out, which is really nice. Instead of using a lanyard tube, they have this little pin here to catch a lanyard on. You just kind of feed it through. I really like that. You know how I feel about lanyard tubes, because the whole design of this knife is about keeping it thin, and a lanyard tube would just make it fatter in one spot. So yeah, I really do like that. 7075 aluminum, which is pretty tough for aluminum. I've been carrying it for a couple of days, not a whole lot. I got this from LTK. He had it for a couple of days before that. No marks or anything on it yet. Very, very good. The overall construction is just outstanding. It runs on roller bearings. We'll get to that later when we talk about the deployment. But, you know, roller bearings are a pretty rare thing even on super expensive knives. You're getting this on a $55 knife. I like roller bearings from the bike industry days. That's just what, you know, that's the good stuff. We have very good hardware. I did take this apart once just to see what it was like inside. I did nothing to it. I didn't put a drop of anything in it. I just tore it apart, put it back together just to see how it worked. And very impressed with everything inside of it. It was very clean inside. I didn't feel a need to clean it when I tore it apart. I just opened it up and said, that looks good, and put it back together. So I have nothing but good things to say about that. This is the blue one. It also comes in kind of a rose gold. I think they call it golden rose, maybe something like that. I call it rose gold because it looks like the iPhone rose gold. And then also in a gray. In the gray, I would call it a very subtle, gentlemanly folder looking knife. A bit less so in the rose gold. A lot less so in this blue. This blue is pretty bright. I like bright a lot more than rose gold is kind of code word for pinkish, and so I didn't want that, so I got the blue. But the blue is pretty bright. It is I call it my little lightsaber because it is a very thin, slicey little blade, and it glows and it's blue, and it's kind of just my little lightsaber. But I would prefer the gray. I admit, if I could have gotten the gray, I would have gotten the gray, and just because for the kind of things I think I'm going to use this for, blue doesn't match a lot of my suits. I'm not Steve Harvey, so I wear black, or I have a black suit and a gray suit, and that is it. So I would rather, if I'm dressed up, I would rather have a more neutral color. But it's a cool blue. It's very cool looking, and if you like it, you like it. I would rather have the gray. So that's not a knock on the aesthetics. That's just my personal opinion and my rant about bright knives, I guess. But let's talk about the blade. That's the most important thing, right? As I said, 0.12 thickness, which is not bad. It's stout enough, I think. This is a very long, skinny blade. This is not meant for heavy-duty use. The designer himself calls it a light-duty knife. It is meant for lighter sort of EDC tasks. It slices just fine for what it is. You have a very high flat grind and a fairly thin blade stock, so it slices through, you know, small amounts of cardboard. I've used it, for opening boxes. I used it for cutting up some paper. I used it to break down some, kitchen cardboard thickness recycling I had around today, and it worked perfectly fine. For your usual EDC tasks, it is absolutely, completely 100% good to go, but it is not a heavy-duty knife. Don't ever think that. I think you could tell just by looking at it, especially if you had one in your hand. You pick it up and you're like, ooh, this is a thin little thing. The blade does look very stabby. There's no way to get around that. I probably could have put this in the aesthetics category also, but I decided in my notes to put it here. It is a very stabby looking little blade. But that's just kind of the way a lot of these smaller, thinner gentleman folders are. You can say the same thing about the AM4. It's also a very stabby looking knife. When you're trying to get a longer blade into a thinner handle, that's just what you're going to get. There's nothing wrong with it, but you might want to think about that when you pull it out in the office cafeteria, It might intimidate some people. I will say this again later on probably, but I wish this was just, the overall length was just a tick shorter. If this was a 3.3, 3.4 inch blade and a slightly shorter handle, wow, this would be like the ultimate gentleman's folder, and it only available in like normal colors. It would be so cool. But it isn't. It's a pretty good size one. It's nothing that I think anyone around me is going to have a problem with. I work mostly around, comedians and bike people. They're not going to freak out about it. But if you work in a office environment with a lot of, conservative computer IT type people, they might go, whoa, when you whip this thing out, because it is pretty long. But all right, I think I got off track a little bit here. Let's talk about the ergonomics. Well, this fits in ergonomics too. We'll just throw it into there. Ergonomically, I think it's pretty good. One other reviewer, I don't think he'll mind me saying his name, Kevin Cleary. I mean, he put it out there, and I love Kevin Cleary's reviews. Said he loved everything about it, but it was way too slippery. I don't feel that way. Yes, the handle material is slippery. It's just completely non-texturized, anodized aluminum, and it is pretty slippery. But there's a lot of jimping on here. You've got a good amount of jimping up on top of the blade. You've got a good amount of jimping on the liner lock, and both of those are fully engaged when you're holding onto this knife how I think you usually will. And to me, it doesn't feel like it would slip very far at all. I mean, I stabbed a bunch of boxes and stuff with it today to try it out. Like I said, I was cutting through some fairly thin, but still cutting through quite a bit of cardboard. I never felt like it was slippery. I felt like it was completely fine. And my hands don't sweat. I'm a freak somehow. My hands do not sweat at all. So there's no traction on my hands whatsoever. And this felt completely fine to me. I didn't really find an issue with it a bit. And it's also got, I like this, they call it, what do they call it? A digit stop. This little chunk out of the blade right above the R is not a just aesthetic thing. It is a useful thing. You can put your finger up there to do fine little detail stuff. I tried doing some of that today, and it makes a long blade like this a bit easier to use on detail stuff. I really like it. It's a very good design touch. I think ergonomically, for the purposes of this knife, it is excellent. If it was a heavy-duty use knife, no, it's probably not. But for what it's designed for, it is excellent. I think Kevin just does heavier-duty stuff with knives than I do. I'm absolutely, actually certain he does. From watching his videos, he does a lot heavier-duty stuff than I do. So he has a bit different, priorities when it comes to stuff. But I think ergonomically, for the purpose of it, for this kind of gentlemanly sort of folder, it's great. Now, carry-wise, also outstanding. Everything about this knife is designed to be thin. That's why it's a front flipper. You have no flipper tab sticking out. This is how it's going to sit in your pocket. It's super, super thin when you reach by. It's really, really good. It's very light. Again, I said 2.6 ounces, which makes the one flaw I have with this knife all that more frustrating, is that they designed this knife to be so thin and so light, and then they didn't take the extra step to put a deep carry pocket clip on it. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you put a deep carry clip on it? I don't understand that. No, there's not a lot sticking out from your pocket. It's going to be about like yay, but it should really have a deep carry clip on it. And I know they do it because this is the Real Steel H5 Gerfalcon I have, and it's got a deep carry clip, so I know they do it. Like, why doesn't this knife have this clip? I'm sure I could make that happen. But, yeah, this is stonewash. It wouldn't match. But still, I just don't get why they don't have a deep carry clip on it. That's really probably my biggest flaw I have with this knife, is that it's not deep carry, and I don't get why. One thing I don't have a flaw with is the action. Wow. It is extremely impressive. Now, as I said, it's a front flipper. I'm not awesome at the front flipper thing yet. It does take a minute to get used to. There are several different ways you can do it. You can do it with your forefinger. You can do it, some guys do it with their index finger like that. Thumb is easiest way, and it's the only way I've mastered so far yet. So that's what we're gonna see here. So I learned quickly, see this little bevel right here? As long as you keep your hand down below that, comes right out. The detent is outstanding, and once you get that down, it's super easy. You can kind of light switch it. See if I can manage to pull it off here. Yep, I did. Yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's super, super smooth. So smooth. I mean, guys, it is really smooth. I wish that there was an easier way for you to feel. I wish I could do feel-o-vision over the internet. Wow, I'd be rich. I'd revolutionize the porn industry if I could do that, but oh, it is so smooth. I mean, this is like, bang, just closes. It is one of the smoothest knives I have. As I said, it runs on those roller bearings. They're really, really nice. And again, I have not greased this up. I have not done anything crazy to it. I opened it up, looked at it, put it back together, and it runs so well. As a matter of fact, I will say, and this is high praise for me, the only knife I currently have that I would say is smoother, actually the only knife that I've owned that I would say is smoother right now, is the steel wheel cut jack. This is the full-size Italian M390 expensive version. And this is $100 more than this knife. This is the only one that I would say is smoother, and it's not by a lot. I mean, this is 92% as smooth as the steel wheel, which costs $100 more, because I still say the cut jack and M390, that's the Italian version. That's just as smooth as any of your ZTs or anything like that. So it is amazingly smooth, but guys, it's just so much fun to play with. It is a great little fidget toy. I had to take a 3-hour car drive yesterday, and I just played with it in the car the whole time. I just sat there driving, just flipping it open and closing it. You'd think I'd be better at the front flipper since I spent 3 hours playing with it. There we go. Now I'm getting it better. It's hard to work around this stupid tripod, but it is so much fun to play with, so much fun to fidget with, so smooth. I just love it. Just for the fidget factor alone, just that it's a front flipper that's unique and it runs on these roller bearings that are super smooth, that's worth the $55 alone, in my opinion. But in conclusion, there's a lot of things about this that are worth the $55. It is 14C28N steel. I think I may have skipped over that through the whole review, which is ridiculous. It's a Sandvik steel, which is very, very good steel. Absolutely for this price range, completely fine. Very corrosion resistant, and like I said, I've had this H5 Grafalca made of the same steel from the same company for a long time, and I've beat the hell out of this thing, and it hasn't ever caused a problem for me. Super easy to sharpen when I need to. Great steel. Absolutely 100% super quality construction. I really like this knife. It is definitely a keeper. I would call it, in this blue color, a sort of gentleman's techno folder, or techno gentleman's folder. If it was gray, I would just put it completely in that gentleman's folder category. But yeah, very cool. I like my little lightsaber. Super sharp out of the box. Does everything I need it to do, and it's super fun to play with, and so quality made. Just so great. You guys have seen I don't have the box in front of me here. I set it aside. But the box, you know, it comes with a cloth. It comes in a nice box. It comes with schematics on how to tear it apart. A lot of cool little touches that Real Steel does. A lot of these Chinese companies, I love that about a lot of these bigger Chinese companies. They just do little touches they don't need to do. But they're great. It makes you feel like you bought something special. And this is pretty something special. So I'd highly recommend one. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. I've been Brian. Have a good one.